Welcome, taste travelers and sauce bosses. Welcome back to another episode of the Cook Station at Home. We are joined today by the wonderful Nathan Spainhour. We also have Mr. John Clausiopo, and a new guest with us as well is Gregory Cordell. He's part of our marketing team at the Cook Station. So, welcome in today, guys.
Happy to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Happy to be here.
They gave you a title, which just cracked me up.
I have a title.
Is that what it is? Oh,
Do I get a nameplate?
Oh my God!
I want a nameplate. I want a desk thing. So we're here to talk barbecue and books today.
Yeah.
Books. John, are you a reader? Are you reading?
Yeah, comic books.
Comic books.
And
I know you're.
And that's the only reason I picked this up, because there was pictures of pigs. And out of all the animals, if you really think about all the animals that really are kind of gross in real life, but are really cute as cartoon characters.
It's a pig.
Pigs and frogs are really the top of the list. So as soon as I saw pigs, I'm like, yeah, I'd get into it.
Yeah, there are lots of pictures.
Oh.
Great book. Yeah. So there we go. Barbecue project.
But
you're I know you read, because you're a Marcus Aurelius
and
fan,
I think
right?
that's what I liked about. So
you're a stoic, like a stoic pig.
Well, yeah, but it's funny. So I studied construction in school. I'm all about mechanics and stuff, and I think that's what I loved about the book. Is it's a book about. It's not a read cover to cover book. It could be a reference book. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of book I kind of like. It has short little essays in it. It's kind of neat.
So let's start off.
So Nathan is the author of this wonderful book.
Nathan is the author of the South Carolina Barbecue Project. And we brought you in. We're doing a cooking class event with you next month. Or whenever this airs in June of 2026. And so we're excited to get you in to find out a little bit more about your book, the project, because I was like, wait, he's a chef. He's not a chef. What is it? So I'm excited to dive into what brought you to create this book and what it means for South Carolina and the culinary scene.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I guess I can talk a little bit about where it came from, where the idea came from.
Yeah, because it's interesting. It's called the Barbecue Project.
So my background is in design, like graphic design. And I've been doing creative work for about 20 years now. And I think, that's kind of where it came from. And I grew up in the upstate of South Carolina. All of it started when I was getting my master's degree. And I was on a train trip. And this is really random, but I'll condense a long story to make it real short, but essentially I did a lot of work on this train trip because I was studying the connections between memory and sense of place and how they're connected in the brain. And when I got back to my, to school with my advisors and all that, and I presented the work, they were like, that's cool, but how are you going to connect this more to you? And it's not worth getting into the work, but the reality was it was like that's what triggered this whole exploration. So essentially I started studying the South, and then that led me to foodways, and then that led me to barbecue. And then the interesting thing to me about it was the connection between barbecue and just our culture as a whole, and how it acts as almost like a microcosm of the South. And you can use it as a lens to view all the different things that have happened in the South kind of through time, and it's a mirror of that. So that's kind of was like one thing. Okay. And then the other thing was I just kind of approached it with the question, from a design background, it was like, okay, if you are looking at barbecue restaurants and there's one that's like on Main Street with a really nice sign and like beautiful logo and all that kind of stuff, and you compare it to the dilapidated restaurant on the side of the road with hand-painted signage and things are falling apart, which one's going to have the better barbecue? Everyone says this one. And, coming from a design background, that's an interesting question. When we're taught you're taught about consistency, hierarchy, making sure people understand where you're coming from and all that kind of stuff, that being from that ilk, so to speak, I was really curious as to why that was the case. What makes that more authentic than not? Yeah. So that's the kind of the short story about where it came from.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really interesting when you talk about it from a standpoint of the signals for authenticity. I know that Rodney Scott, right, is in your book, and the original place, has certain vibe to it, and just visual cues and all this just screams authenticity. Then they tried to put it in Charleston, and that closed yesterday.
Did it really? This is news to me.
Yeah, it closed yesterday.
That's a big deal.
So you got to wonder if you just can't, pack that up and sterilize it and brand it, so to speak, and just do all the slick things to it and preserve that, whatever that magic, that personality that you have when you have a place on the side of the road on a 2-lane highway in the middle of nowhere.
Its address is Crossroads, right? There's no number. I think that's fascinating. And if I'm honest, that particular restaurant, Rodney Scott's Whole Hog Barbecue in Charleston, was one of the big outliers for me, because you're right. It was really slick, and it was obviously professionally designed and all this kind of stuff. But the one thing it has going for it is Rodney Scott, and that's the thing. And now I know he has there's Atlanta, there's 2 in Birmingham, like there's a bunch of those around. So I'm curious about how they're doing, but.
Yeah, and I just saw it in the paper. I literally saw it in the paper yesterday.
That's amazing.
So and it didn't. I didn't see why. There could have been a million reasons that had nothing to do with what I might assume that it had to do with.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? But anyway, that's it's interesting that there's a language that is authentic to that, and if you can't speak that language, what happens to you? How do you
when the language is fake, that was like
it's like the home team thing
from like your hometown. You go to Anderson and they're in France, and there's that barbecue place, and they actually somebody painted on the side of the building. But you ever see like those, the ends backwards and words are misspelt and stuff like that? But you think somebody really made an effort to do it. Then when you see somebody do it, but it's polished, but they try to make it look that way, it screams fraud right away. I mean, you tell right away. You're like, that's shit right there. Somebody trying to sell, a lifestyle that's just not that way.
So the book. Love the book, by the way.
Thanks.
And John and I were talking before you got here. This could have been a coffee table book. I mean, it could have been the pictures. Yeah. For John, at least, could have been a lot bigger.
maybe an area to color in the back. Maybe an area to color in the back.
How to draw a pig.
Yeah, how to draw a pig. That would have been neat.
But there were so many barbecue restaurants in this state, and then there's region. I mean, how did you choose? How did you make your choices?
So that one, that's an interesting one. I approached this from a perspective that, I was almost like an observer, right? So I made it a point to do a couple of things. One, I didn't want to talk to anybody. Like, I didn't want to actually go in and interview the pit masters until after I experienced the place from an outsider's perspective. That was a really big deal to me at the beginning. Now, of course, I've talked to all these people and, have different kinds of relationships with them. But at the time I was looking at that, and to get there, I was very aware that I was not a barbecue judge. I was not, into the food specifically, as far as like, I am not one qualified to do that. So what I did was I looked at the South Carolina Barbecue Association, which is kind of like the de facto standard of, who judges the barbecue in the state. They had, at the time I did the initial research for this, they had a website and a listing of top 100 they called it top 100 barbecue places in the state. And they divided them into 2 categories. One was, if I can get this right, one was called 100-mile barbecue. And those are places that are worth driving over 100 miles to go try it. And then one category was called worth the trip, which are like the runners up. They're still really good, but they're not as good as these places. So I chose the case studies based off of that list. And I figured if they are the ones telling us it's good, probably pretty good and worth driving, all over the state.
And then you put up some other guardrails. And I just love the fact right in the beginning of the book, you don't pull any punches. You're like, and you just say it is pork.
Yeah.
It is, we're not talking. Louis barbecue was great. We're not talking. It is pork, and you just say, I just love. It's 3 powerful sentences that just say this is it.
Yep.
And just put it right in a box.
I tried. Yeah, I had to do that. Otherwise, that thing would have been 4 times as long.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I guess that's true.
But it's also, I think, Robert Moss, I think in his foreword, he said it best. He was like, this book is very opinionated, and it shouldn't be other way because we're talking about barbecue. And I think that's part of it as well. It's the culture around it. There's so much nostalgia associated with everyone who's experienced it. And I think that's been kind of wonderful about putting this out into the wild. It's like learning everybody's stories around it and having everyone has a very specific opinion about what the best barbecue place is. And I love learning about that. And I was just talking to someone the other day about I've done a few events where I'm at a table at a fair or festival. People just come up to me, and inevitably the very first sentence is most of the time it's super defensive. It's people come up and they're like, murmur, 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 murmur,
just like that, with the murmur.
Yeah. Wow. It sounds like that. It's like
it's like the Peanuts teacher. The Peanuts teacher came up there and yelled at him.
But people come up and they have this litmus test that they're putting against me, and inevitably at some point in the conversation it seesaws and they open up, and it ends up being, I've had so many long conversations in those festivals just because I think people find when they find someone who knows what they're talking about or can relate to what their past was or what they grew up with or whatever, it opens up, it's like a floodgate, right? You start hearing all these great stories.
Well, I think that's what was cool about the book. You were asking me in the beginning, do I read and what I read? To me, I didn't grow up here, but I was lucky enough to move here in the mid 80s till I got to see the last stand of true Southern kind of thing. But it's a really cool history book too.
Yeah.
And it's looking at, you take the argument out of this is better than that, but this book isn't about any of that stuff. It's about, history. It's about culture. It's about, and again, your background in graphic design, just the feel. It was funny. I went and I found, this is my favorite cup. Me and my wife, we used to have a camper. And we went down to Santee. We found Lone Star Barbecue, and it's a mercantile place.
Oh, that's great.
And it used to be an old, it was a post office. And, and they had barbecue in there. And it was the first time I had hash.
Oh.
And it was funny. The food was cool, but the place and the signs and all that other shit was almost as impressive as the food. Mm-hmm. And that's what I loved about the book. It's, barbecue's there, but it's about the stories.
Mm-hmm. And
do you like barbecue?
I do.
It's a DNA thing, isn't it, for the South? I mean, is it?
Yeah.
Well, John and I were talking before you got here. Is there anything like it in the rest of the country? Like maybe lobster or clam chowder in the Northeast, maybe Cajun down in Louisiana.
I was going to say New Orleans has its own.
Maybe pizza somewhere, but pizza's sort of a latecomer to the,
and it's national.
It was imported,
Well, barbecue in Texas is different than barbecue here too.
Yes.
But I mean, food that people will fight about. Mm-hmm. I mean, is there? I mean, maybe the Northeast is the seafood. Maybe I don't really know. I mean, do you have a comparison in your research?
Well, I think that was kind of why I ended up honing in on it, because I didn't, growing up here, you don't really think anything of it because it's just kind of
part of the culture.
Yes.
Yeah. And then it's not until you leave and come back and you're like, oh, this is something that doesn't exist anywhere else. And then I think for me too, I'd met a lot of people, obviously from not here, that have moved here. They were always asking about the barbecue, and I was like, why do you care? But that being said, I don't know if there's anything as strong as has the opinions around it. But I agree with you. Maybe the New England kind of culture, the lobster, clam chowder, that kind of stuff. New Orleans for sure, but I can't think of anything on the West Coast. I know that's terrible. I'm sure there's something, but maybe a ranch in the Midwest. I don't know.
So obviously you spend, how much time did you spend on the road? Did your wife go with you? Jess go with you?
Yeah, she did.
All the time, every time?
Most times, and I will say this to her credit, she was a vegetarian for like close to 15 years, and now she doesn't eat pork. So,
well, after reading this book, I might not eat pork. There's a whole section of this book that talks about,
Yes, that's a whole thing.
Yeah, it's
obviously. Yeah, it's no. She went with me most of the time. We had friends that went with us different times. I was just how much time I spent on it? It's a good question. I mean, for the initial research, I mean, hours and hours and hours. Like I remember during the early parts, it was during COVID, originally. And so I think I started the research in 2019, and it went up until last year, really, for this launch. And so I've been to every place in there at least 2 or 3 times. And but during the original research, I mean, I remember it was, I don't know if you remember the summer of COVID, it's such a blur, but it was like there were, everything closed down in March, and then it all opened back up a little bit in like June for like a month and a half, or a month, and then it all went back down again. And during that little time frame, I went to, I think, 3 different places. I went to Scott's, so it was a 6-hour round trip, 7-hour round trip, and we did it all because I couldn't spend the night anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. So you go down, went to have barbecue, drove back, and I did that a few different times during that time. And I've done it all again since, but we a little more reasonable. You can spend the night somewhere, you go to a couple different places. But yeah, hours and hours. I mean, even this weekend I was in Atlanta, I was trying a barbecue place called Heirloom Barbecue, and it was fantastic. It was 2 owners. One is from the South, one's from here, and he does like traditional pork, smoked pork. And then one of the owners is from Korea, and she has like Korean barbecue, and there's this like interesting fusion.
Oh, wow.
It's really good. Totally
That sounds
recommend it.
cool.
Yeah.
So, the most interesting person you met on this journey, who might, or people, who stands out to you? Who are the ones you remember?
Well, there's different people. So, one of the guys I interviewed, his name is Ryan Fertile. And he spells his name Rien, and he wrote another book called The One True Barbecue. And it's the subtitle something like In Search of the Whole Hog or something. And he traveled around the entirety of the South with a photographer friend, and they got like some grant, and they got a camper, and he's a journalist, and he just drove around and interviewed pitmasters the whole time and wrote a book. And it was the big inspiration for the case studies in this book.
Interesting.
He was a fascinating person to talk to because he reminded me a little bit of me, like a little bit removed. Like he's in Cambridge now and in Boston, like outside of Boston. He was in New Orleans, but so I think he's teaching up there or something. But it's a very academic approach. But he's the one that kind of like probably inspired me to kind of like jump into it in addition to the people I was doing grad school with. But that would be one person. And then another guy that I interviewed, his name is Jamie Jones. And he is a friend of a friend. Kind of, I grew up like my sister's best friend's husband. So he grew up in Anderson, Pendleton area, but he grew up smoking whole hogs. And he would go to like Clemson Extension and just buy the hogs they didn't want anymore. And then he would go out and during college and just like, they would just do it. It was just the thing they did. And I learned a lot from him as far as kind of, culturally, like growing up and doing that kind of work. And, how he spoke about pitmasters and his respect for the craft was a real eye opener for me. And so he was a really cool guy. There are a ton of pitmasters. I mean, Jeff over at Mike and Jeff's, super nice man, like salt of the earth, like he'll just show you around. Like he was a great guy to me. Like I think there's like all those people are great. I think that's the one thing, and I think I quote Ryan Fertile in there, and one of the things he said that I love the most is he said barbecue is open source, like software. He's like people who do this are so interested in just showing you the process and showing you how it's done. They're not afraid of you like stealing any secrets. They won't tell you about their sauces, but they'll tell you about everything else because it's such hard work. You have to really love what you're doing in order to do this, full time. And I think that's one of the reasons it's so hard to make these kind of like chains out of it. Like to your Rodney Scott point, like it's hard to take that and like multiply it over,
Yeah.
because the people that it's all about the person doing it. It's not as much about the system as it is about the person. And I think there's that. Same way.
Yeah, I love the scene you described. I think it was outside of Rodney Scott's where you got to go back to where
Oh, yes.
to go in and the guys
showed me
invited you to
around.
look around.
So crazy.
That would be really cool.
That was a lot of fun. Yeah, and they were all super nice. I obviously was a big nerd with my camera and stuff, and was like, And,
Now, so all this inspiration, have you actually tried to do any of this on your own at home? Did you go buy a smoker and have you bought a whole hog and brought it?
I have not done a whole hog.
Sleeping in the back room. Just wait,
right?
just
Oh,
have
my
the
Lord.
nerve at it. Just don't have the nerve to offer.
Meet Sweet Pea.
Say hello to dinner.
I would probably have it done for me and then bring it up. I think I'll be honest. I'm teaching a class. I'm not teaching. I take that back. I'm guest lecturing. I'll say it like that in a class that's coming up at Furman where it's a Maymester class where they teach. It's all about upstate barbecue and
Interesting.
it's super cool. But I'm going in on day one to talk about a little bit of the history. But one of the things they do, and I'm so jealous, is it's a 3-week class, and they have class every day, and every day they're at some different barbecue place.
Oh, they teach it at the place?
Mhm.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going with them to Providence Farm, which is up, towards Liberty, and then we're going to Circle M Barbecue after that. But you go to Providence Farm, you can see all the heritage pigs they have, and then Circle M actually, that's where they get their whole hogs from, so you can see the process. So I'm excited to kind of do that, just the experience I offered. And I was like, I'll take pictures. Let me take pictures. I can come, But all that being said, I have done it. Actually, for my thesis, this was only a part of it, and then I had to do an exhibition, and then I also had to do like a whole 40-minute talk. And the exhibition itself, I ended up smoking pork butt during that. So that was part of the process. I think that was the first time I'd actually done it by myself.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was good. It was really good. I was surprised.
So what sauce did you use? What's your sauce? What's your go-to
What's
sauce?
your go-to sauce?
I would say my favorite, I have two. I love the vinegar and pepper.
Yeah.
Love vinegar and pepper. Actually, my default is no sauce, because I learned that. Try it with no sauce, and if it works, you know you're in a good spot. So then you apply the other ones, and then the other would be mustard.
You like the mustard?
I love a
I'm
mustard.
not the mustard guy.
You are an
I love
upstate
it.
nerd, aren't you?
I went to school in Columbia. I did
See?
I did the piggy park thing, and it didn't. But I knew people who just loved it.
Yeah.
And we used to buy the bottles in the grocery store and try it on, maybe on chicken. I liked it, it was good.
Well,
but I love the eastern North Carolina.
Yes, the vinegar pepper to me is and I love it when it's spicy too.
Because I grew up going to Little Pigs, and the Little Pig sauce.
Yeah.
The original Little Pig sauce to me is still probably one of the best sauces I've ever, because it's like your mama's spaghetti. It's the best spaghetti ever, no matter, it's like what you grew up with, And so that's the closest I've found to that original sauce. I haven't bought a bottle of their sauce in a long time. Maybe it's still the same recipe. I have no idea. But that was so good. But I agree. I like that.
There's something about the vinegar. I don't know. I think when I was reading about the advent though of mustard sauce and kind of learning about that, you start seeing German heritage and whatnot, and then it makes sense. It's pork and German mustard and bratwurst and all that. They all go together. It only would make sense that mustard would go with pork, pulled pork.
So did that come out of Texas or did that come out of South Carolina? Did the mustard origin?
It was Holly Hill, South Carolina.
Okay.
Really?
I love
Yeah.
Holly Hill. That's
Yeah.
what I
That
was
is
telling you,
to
my
the
favorite
beach.
place.
That's it. You pass it on the way to Charleston or wherever.
Right after 95, I think.
Yes. Yep.
But best summer, there's a lot of German, I guess, in a
Mhm.
lot of those places. But there's also kind of probably a far stretch too in the fact that mustard's one of the it's an acidic kind of thing.
Yes.
It's it might be a stretch to tie it to German heritage in the upstate, but at the same time, I mean, it's a cool story.
Yeah.
But it's so funny though. You were talking about Little Pigs. Again, me moving here in 84, 85. That's what it was. And or you would go to the Greek places and they had some sort of bastardized barbecue thing that doesn't even really think. But it's so funny, and I love in your book how we're all upstate folks here, and you kind of we're really kind of new at this. I mean, like even very, very new at this, and we have no tradition of it. And it was funny. I was in the store, and Kelly was telling me about this great. These guys are out of Greenville, and it's funny, but it's not traditional. It's all made, apples, apple vinegars. So you have the upstate in one of the regions that's playing loose and fast with the history and all that. And then you have, the PD and stuff that are really kind of traditional. Is there kind of a rub? First of all, do you think that we're bastardizing barbecue in the upstate?
I do not.
After doing this,
I do not. I think, as with any cuisine, you want to push it forward and try to do new things. Like, I do have hard stances on, what is barbecue and all that kind of stuff, mainly just because of kind of giving myself some
a box of
guidelines to work within. But, I think over the years in doing all this, and I've been doing this, I guess, about 6 years now, and it's kind of my perspective on it's changed a little bit because, it's like saying, Lewis Barbecue has amazing brisket. No one's going to deny that. And it is barbecue. I'm not going to say it's not, right? That's ridiculous. So it's like that, right? So I don't think we're bastardizing. I do think the idea of localization is going away just because of the way our culture is. Like if you think about the internet, right? And then just kind of like the flattening of culture and how everybody can find their niche so much easier now because of our connectivity and things are together. Like a good example of that, and I'll answer the question, try to get to it, but is Bobby's Barbecue, which is down in Fountain Inn, on the border between Simpsonville and Fountain Inn. He learned how to do it, I think, off of YouTube. He's not from, he might be from, I don't know if he's from the area, but he does Texas barbecue and he learned it from YouTube. And now he's one of the people that everyone talks about. They love their stuff. And the first Saturday of every month, he does whole hog barbecue. And he's teaching it to a lot of younger folks. And if you watch him on, Instagram or whatever, it'll have the different people that he's showing how to do it. So for me, it's I don't think we're bastardizing it. I just think we're pushing it in a new direction. And I don't think there's anything really wrong with that. I think in a lot of ways, it's that stuff that's going to get people interested in learning about the original stuff and the history around it. So
it's not like it was taught by a great-great-grandfather recipe that used to do the whole hogs, but you can just go on YouTube and then take that pretty far. Yeah.
I'm sure every generation probably even back then, this wasn't the way we did it.
Yes.
I'm sure there's always going to be that.
Yes.
Some sort of, it's funny though, besides maybe the food changing, I was just thinking about what Greg was saying, and we were talking about this earlier. Lewis, I get it and I love it, but it's $40, $50. It's expensive. Yeah. But when we go to Santee, you go to Holland, you could eat for $7. And and it's funny too when you start thinking about barbecue, the idea of paper plates, all this kind of stuff, non-polished, inexpensive kind of food, really kind of cool and all that. And then when it gets to an upstate, which Greenville, Charleston, even it's not really. Yeah, it's not really the same.
I think,
and that's a bastardization of it. I think sometimes.
I agree. I do agree with that to a certain level. I think there's a lot of things to talk about with that. So with Lewis specifically. So one, he serves prime.
Oh yeah,
it's all prime beef. So if anyone bought prime beef or had, it's going to be more expensive. So I think that's one of the reasons.
It's the quality behind it too.
Yeah, and he also, beef. The price of beef specifically has been on the rise for, y'all know this. However many years now. And I think there's a lot of really interesting articles online about how that's affecting the world of barbecue, specifically in Texas. There's a ton of places closing down. because of the cost just going through the roof. And I think that there's also there's like a cachet around it, right? Like it's like any kind of brand building exercise, right? Like you're going to pay more for Nike shoes than a brand you've never heard of before, even though they might come from the same factory, right? It's the same idea. So Lewis has now made a name for himself. I mean, he made a name for himself in Austin, but like now it's like Bib Gourmand, Michelin Guide, all that kind of stuff. If there are people that aren't going to pay it, there's going to be plenty more people that will. And I think that, and then Greenville too, now getting it's become officially like a foodie city, and especially that helped a lot this year with all the awards Michelin and stuff. Absolutely. And so I think we'll just see more of that. And I think it's in part of it, Home Team's a good example of how that shifted to Home Team Barbecue, where they, I think they make good barbecue, but what I think makes them unique and interesting is the rest of their menu and the fact that you can get like good beer there and all that.
Chicken wings.
I love their wings.
Yeah. So it's like, it's the same idea as before. It's just people trying to kind of push in different directions. But at the end of the day, if you like barbecue, you're going to find your way back to these places. Cause and I think for me, like, if there's something coming out of this work, it's the promotion of those places, those smaller places, the places where this stuff came from, and trying to get people out there to visit them because we don't want them going away. It's almost like a cultural heritage
thing.
It's so funny because you think about it, not only the artwork, not only that kind of stuff, but the fact that it may be open and it may not. You go down there, listen. We're on vacation, and that's what's so cool about some of those places that you write in the book is it's I don't know, it just feels so family oriented.
Well, I was just thinking when you were talking about Lewis, if you could get Lewis barbecue for $8 a plate, you'd never be able to get in there.
You would never.
The line would be to Main Street.
Oh man, that sausage, the stuff that they do in that place is amazing.
Awesome. So, were you involved in any of the? I mean, I'm sure at this point, but what barbecue festivals are you a part of? Like, did you do anything with Southern Roots or?
I was at Southern Roots. Okay. I had a table at Southern Roots. It's kind of like because the book came out, I guess, about a month before the festival happened. And I've done a couple of things. It's been like, I think I was talking before we started recording, I was talking about like this Venn diagram of audiences, because that's been the challenge. It's not a challenge. It's been kind of fun to kind of figure out who is it that wants to read this, right? Because it's not, I say it pretty explicitly, it's not a cookbook. Yeah. You're not going to find like top 10 best places in the state. I can tell you what my opinions are, but I don't think my opinions really have a lot of validity because I'm not a, taste tester or anything like that or whatever, a judge. But I've been to a lot of places. But I think we've been trying to experiment with where to kind of be. And so that was our first foray into that. And it was a lot of fun. It was very hot. I was glad I had a tent, but it was. I talked to a lot of different people from all over, and had a lot of interest. I gave away a lot of like free stuff that I had, just because that's a good audience for it. But I'll be honest. I think I've had. So that's been a thing. I was at the Anderson Soiree. Okay. They do this. This is like
love Anderson Soiree.
Right? Anderson Soiree. My
hometown boy making it big.
That's right. What's funny?
They put a crown on you.
No,
it's so cool.
I went there, and very different audience. I had just as much engagement there, and I think it's the same thing I was saying before. Like people would come up and they'd be like, what's this about? What do you mean? And then we have a conversation. It turns into a much bigger thing. I did a big artist talk at Anderson University last week for the art and design program, and that was fascinating because we had. I was told this, and they could have been blowing smoke, but he was like, "This is the most people they've ever had at any event like that," because there was an entire sociology class in there, and there were all these people just
because you touch on all of that.
I do, and I think some of the other professors, I guess, saw it and were interested, and. That event I sold more books at than any of the other two combined. And it was it was a weird convergence of interests, right? It's sociology, design, and art, and then also just not is a very different avenue for someone with my background to kind of go down, right? And I think people are interested in that, especially young, like 22-year-olds or whatever. They're like, what?
So as a designer, and you and I worked together for years, I guess.
Yes.
And you were always so impressive as a very thoughtful, courageous designer. I just in love your work. But I'm wondering, like, what did you learn as a designer from this experience?
Oh, wow. Thank you. That was very nice of you, by the way. But I think as a designer, one of the things that I took away from this, and it is now present in all of my work, is that I approach conceptual work through making now, where before...
Making, to unpack that a little bit.
So I have to start designing stuff and making stuff from nothing before I can start to develop concepts around it. And it's an unusual way to work, but that's how a lot of this work came. And it was based off of these experiences I was having in these places. I was struggling with, how do you represent visually what I'm talking about in the words that I'm putting together, right?
Yeah.
And so...
I know there was a place in here where you created the state out of sauces.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of thing
It's
you're
a
talking?
good example, yeah. So I was like, maybe I can use the sauce as a medium for something, right?
It's actually in here. It's a big...
Yeah, there's the big version. Yeah, and it's like, how do you do that? And I think for me, it was... I was reading a lot, right? I was reading all this information. I was traveling and taking all this photography and documentation, and I was really trying to figure out, how do I want to represent this, and how do I want to reconvey this and still get the same feeling I was getting by visiting these places. And the way I did that was start creating work using the materials that I was experiencing as I was going. So letterboards, chalkboards, charcoal, sauce, whatever, and I would actually start creating work, and some of this came out of that experimentation. So I guess another way to think about it is, like, I do a lot of experimentation with process, and I do a lot of experimentation with medium now, more so than I used to do. And a lot of my work it's a lot of analog focused work, right? Yeah. So because of that, so that's bled into everything,
which is so refreshing to hear that it's not just some digital download.
And yes,
and heaven forbid whatever else is going on with AI and all that stuff.
To that point, that map, I did this years ago, right? At this point, and I added process images to how I made this to the back of the book right before we published, because I was afraid people would think I did that with AI, but I didn't.
That's so cool.
So yeah.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, there's a lot of visual.
My favorite thing is the 4 different styles of pigs.
Oh, the logos.
The logos. I love it. There's pigs that eat pigs.
Yes.
There's logos with no pigs. There's logos with
cannibal pigs.
Then there's cartoon pigs. Yes. I just love how you just took the logos and you say, okay, how are we going to break that down into these different things? And it's so funny because I think about the little pigs. As soon as I was reading that, I said, that is hilarious. I know I noticed it, but I didn't notice it at the same. I love going into Henry's. And Greg, you got to ask him. We want to know why there was no Velvet Elvis in the book.
Oh, that's
all the cool stuff when you go into Henry's.
It's like, he left out Velvet Elvis. How do you leave
Velvet? Yeah, I thought about that.
Maybe if he was but you go into Henry's, that's half the fun to just see it all.
Yeah, that gave you like a 98.9. No, my favorite was this little guy from Scott. I think this was the Pitbull pig. And I was really kind of surprised that, as you can see here, that there was no mention of a unique detail in that pig that I really don't see on many other pig drawings. This is decidedly a male pig.
Oh, yes. Very much a male pig. Yeah, they were.
I was like, well, there's something new. I don't think you could find a piece of pig clip art or a drawing anywhere in the rest of the world that has that distinction.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point.
And that just cracked me up. I was like, wow, what was the inspiration?
I think he just did that to see if somebody would notice. It's kind of like I'm going to make him his sign, and they probably shorted him $20. He says, "I'll show you."
Yeah, I'm going to leave off a leg.
Yeah. So there's so much to talk about here. One of the other things that John and I were talking about before you got here is what is a barbecue? Is it a barbecue place?
Oh,
is it a shack? Is it a stand?
Joint?
Is it a joint? What's
hangout?
Is there a common banana? Is there a universal one there? Or are they all different?
I usually say joint because I feel like that's encompassing of all the different kind of variations it could be. I usually call some place like Lewis a restaurant because that's what it feels like. But yeah, joint is the word I use if I'm writing it down or if I'm trying to convey it to someone. I think shack is kind of typical too, but it's almost like that implies something smaller, I think, I don't know. But joint generally seems to be.
Well, it's funny, like I still love that place in Anderson. Every time I go back and forth. But
you talk about Smoking Pig. Yeah.
And joint seems that there is some sort of organization to it.
Yes.
With shack just looks like some shanty town, and it just happened to have barbecue. So I like that idea.
Food truck.
Yeah,
permanent food truck.
Because some of these, and it's so funny because even when they just look kind of disheveled, you can kind of see some sort of organization kind of to it and structure and all that, and it's kind of funny. But I just think it's kind of, again, just neat, the visual side of it. But the other thing that you didn't get to in the book too is you were talking about personalities. I love the people that work in those places too.
Yes.
The lady behind the counter, the lady who's just like when we went down to Lone Star, I never had true hash, and in the PD, and the lady was like, "Oh, this you gotta have it," and I didn't want it. She goes, "No, you're gonna get it." I mean, it's like she force fed it to me. I'm like, "No," and I was
it's an experience. I remember the first time I had it. I think we were down north somewhere near Monk's Corner. And I was just blown away. I just didn't know what to think about that. Now I look for it. And my stepfather at the time, he said, "This is how you judge a barbecue place. Is by the hash."
Oh, that's great.
And that was his test. His litmus test was whether the hash was any good.
But it's funny, like you talk about pit masters, but just the other cast of characters in that place that just crack. I mean, I would have never went and had that experience. But the lady behind, she wasn't going to let it go. I mean, wasn't going to let it go.
And I know
it's kind of cool.
You dove into the visual experience of all this, which is really cool and just sort of a unique and new perspective on it. But it really is a multi-sensory thing. You got obviously there are the smells and the taste, but we were talking earlier about the sound. I mean, as a kid growing up here, Little Pig was on Mills Avenue, which I think is still there, maybe not in the same exact spot. But you could blindfold me and take me into Little Pigs, and I could tell you we were there by the sound because they were chopping it up. All that. It was nonstop chopping and yelling.
Oh yeah.
What do you want?
Yeah, Buc-ee's when it was here in Lake Forest, you would walk in that little thing, and you order a sandwich, and that's what you heard.
Just that chopping sound was just such a cool thing. And the other thing that you cover in the book, which is so important, is the sides.
Oh yeah,
the sides. Some people judge by the sides. Yep. I know my wife Courtney. She wants to go to the place that has the better sides. The barbecue,
whatever. Yeah.
But if it's got good mac and cheese, good fried okra, good baked beans, good slaw, banana pudding, sweet potato souffle. I mean. And I don't even know where the list ends. But she's definitely a side person. Did you? What was your experience with the sides?
I mean, that's a huge part of it. Like you said, I think that when I was talking about the Barbecue Association and their top 100 barbecue, the reason that a place would make it on the the lower list is because their sides weren't up to par. That was generally.
Oh, really?
Really? So the sides were a ding if you didn't have good sides.
See, I always thought it was an afterthought. I would have thought, the barbecue center stage, big,
I mean,
and then the sides are just fluff.
Well, I think it is. I mean, I think that's the whole delineation, right? Like, there are a lot of really good barbecue places or barbecue joints in South Carolina. So like there's a lot of people that do it well. And so you have a plethora of that, but what sets you above a mark above the rest might be, really good sides. And I think I talk about the holy trinity of sides, like what is it, potato salad, baked beans, and what's the other one? Oh man, thinking myself, I'll remember it in a second. Baked beans. Slaw, thank you, slaw. And then then I talk about hash a good bit on top of that too. But I mean, I think around here especially, you have the sweet potato souffle, and I know like at Mike and Jeff's, like that's the thing that if you go in there and you ask them what should I get, they're like, well, you can get any of the pork, but the sweet potato souffle, that's the thing. You know what I mean? So it's a huge deal. And
sweet potato souffle is like dessert and appetizer, everything all in one.
I can get Kelly to go to Henry's any day of the week. All I have to say is banana pudding.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's all I gotta say.
Yes.
And Kelly's like, I really don't. You got banana pudding. Oh, okay. My other favorite thing about it, that's considered a vegetable.
Yes.
You can
That's right.
spiced apple. I'm like, really? That's your vegetable is spiced apples and banana pudding, Kelly? And Kelly says, oh, yeah, I'll just get the vegetable plate.
So what's your go-to trio of sides? What
For
do you?
me, if there's fried okra on the menu, I love it. Period. Like it doesn't matter. Fried okra. There's that, and then I'll look around. I'll go, okay. Usually I'll do collard greens because I do feel like I need something.
But there's nothing like good in those either.
No, absolutely
it's like green beans.
Green beans.
The green beans has more pork than the barbecue.
Yeah, absolutely. There's
nothing good there.
It's like a weird. You're like, okay, I'm doing okay, but no, like usually fried okra. I do collard greens. I'll do green beans. I usually try. If someone tells me to try the sweet potatoes, I'll try that because normally they're made, really good. Banana pudding. There's a funny story my wife has. When she was early in her career, she worked in architecture for interior design, and she was an interior designer at the time. And her boss is from Greenville, is from Greenville, and he was like, one day during lunch, they were out on a job or something. He was like, I really want to get some vegetables for lunch today. And they went to Charlie's Barbecue out on Pelham, which is the same idea. And she still tells that story. She was like, I don't understand. There were no vegetables on that plate, but it's the same idea.
Mac and cheese.
Yeah, it was mac. Exactly. He was like, got my vegetables. I'm like, oh my God, he's still alive. It's good.
Yeah, the sides. We'll go. There's a little barbecue place up the street from where we live, and Smoking Blues Barbecue. It's on Stallings Road, and we'll just go get sides.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great.
Because just have craving because they have great sides. And so I didn't know. Was there a surprising side? Was there anything surprising at all in your journey? Did something hit you that you didn't expect at any point? Either from a food standpoint or an environment standpoint?
Surprise. It's a good. I mean, there are different types of surprises, I guess. I mean, I think, in a lot of ways, like some of the biggest surprises to me, and I shouldn't be surprised, are like when you go somewhere that's literally in the middle of nowhere.
I was going to say just where it is.
Yeah, just out in absolutely an hour away from any civilization, and then there's a line outside. That's the stuff that would floor me, and it would be like on a Wednesday afternoon or when they shouldn't. I would always look at when they're open. I would always call because you don't trust anything online, but it was that kind of thing. It was just like, obviously people know about this place. Obviously they're doing okay. You know what I mean?
We were driving back from Litchfield last weekend, and I mean, it looked like little stands beside people's houses, but they had barbecue signs, and people were, just driving back through those roads. There's just fields around you, so it's very interesting. Where's your go-to Greenville barbecue spot if you had to pick one?
I would do Henry's because I like the people, or Mike and Jeff's because Mike and Jeff's is actually where my studio where I work. It's nearby, so I'll go there. And usually they're not crowded. I can get in and it's good.
I feel like my family's go-to right now is Home Team, just because we have young children that roam the field and try and jump off the ledge.
Especially Mike and Jeff's, when you're going out to Travelers Rest and you kind of see that, but that just looks like a joint.
Yes,
just,
absolutely.
I like the fact that we have something. Plus, I'm a huge fan of Smoke on the Waters, and but you're right, they're restaurants. I think them and maybe Henry's is really the ones that would be in the upstate that would truly be a barbecue joint.
Yes, I agree with you on that. And it's interesting, like Henry's, even though they're technically a chain, I don't even know if you can call them a chain, where they have 2 places maybe. But I think one of the things I like about them is they're so consistent. Like, and anyone who's coming, especially from out of state, they've got a location right there on Wade Hampton that's near downtown. So you can send people, and if you send someone there, like, it'll be a good experience, so they'll get an authentic experience. And, I think that's one of the reasons I really...
So I told Greg this story, and this is why Henry's, I just kind of, I know it's legitimate because I was standing at Stone Avenue, getting ready to turn on to Wade Hampton, and I'm standing at the light, and all of a sudden, there's just fire coming out of the top of the chimney. It's just blowing out. I'm like, holy crap, it's on fire. Oh my God, Henry's Smokehouse is on fire. I'm freaking out. I'm thinking, and about the time that I see this, these 2 kids nonchalantly, you can just see them get up on the roof, and they kind of like throw a blanket over it, and they're just sitting there, kind of smoking a cigarette. And you can tell that it happened. Like there was no fear in them. Like this was no rush, no urgency. Nobody was spooked. The place, I can still see cars pulling in to order. Like, so that pit goes 24 hours. This is something it's a legitimate place. It's not like they came in with somebody just drove in with a van and put barbecue in there. They're doing it.
He'd love to have been in there, right? When the guy's like chopping him, chimney fire.
And it was so funny because when you saw those kids, and they were like kids, they just nonchalantly get up there, they're talking to one another, just putting this fire, and they just crawled down the roof. Like, holy crap, that must happen a lot because that was the fat, the stuff that was in that. And maybe it burns up. Yeah, thank God. It's about time to burn it out.
Yeah, it's just time. Maybe it was intentional.
Maybe but you can tell because that place, they did it there. You knew right there, that they did it there.
That's
kind of cool.
I love that.
So John alluded to it earlier. There is a section in the book that goes into the unattractive, the scary, the dark side of the pork, the processing and all that kind of stuff, which we won't necessarily go into here, but when I was reading that, I was like, wow, you got to be careful. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm just curious, if someone reads this, do you have advice on safe pork purchasing?
I will say,
I'm assuming that Publix and Harris Teeter and Ingles and all those places you're going to be okay there. But but where's the place where it gets to be a little bit of, you got to be really careful, do you think?
I don't know. I think nowadays people, that topic of conversation and the mechanization of pork processing and, all of that it became news. And when that happened, people started paying attention.
Right.
So I think because of the fact that you're putting it in the limelight, so to speak, it's a lot easier now to not worry about it so much. I will say, like, local places, especially around here. Well, a lot of what I talk about in the book is the Eastern North Carolina problem, like issues that they had with the capos and whatnot, and I think South Carolina learned a lot from their mistakes. You know what I mean? And so they have a lot more restrictions around where those farms are. And a lot of the new pit masters and the new barbecue places really pay a lot of attention to where the hogs come from. So like
what they're fed.
Like I think before where I was mentioning earlier, like there's Providence Farm up the road, do heritage hogs. There's a really great heritage farm up in near not Rock Hill, but like there's a city around there, I can't remember the name of it, but they're like places around the state that actually pride themselves in, it's like free range, for lack of a better term. And I know Scott's does that. Now there's one hog farm down near in the Low Country that a lot of people go to that's Robert Moss told me that, because he was like, when I do it, I always go to this place, and I think a lot of the places. So people are paying a lot more attention. It's not as much of a concern but it still does exist. So I would say like maybe the places that, you know, are selling it really cheap, I don't know. Maybe those are the ones you need to worry about. Maybe that's where you see that.
Why do you add like? Why do you think that was important to add to the book, and why do you think some of the racial kind of? Why do you think that needed to all be in the book too? Because you know, you talk a little bit about even in the Civil War times, the idea of what a barbecue was. You know, some people, it was a way to kind of keep folks down. And why do you have to add that? Why do you think it was an important part of the story?
Because it's history, and it's important to share all sides of history, even if it's the stuff we're not comfortable with. And I think that to me, growing up in South Carolina, I mean, I think out of that story, there's a lot of hope in the fact that you can see, even in where we are today, like you can still see a lot of wonderful, positive change over time, but you wouldn't even know that was a thing unless you knew the thing that happened at the beginning. So like a good example is the fact that Maurice Bessinger was the face of barbecue for this state for so many years, and he was such a white supremacist. And I say that unapologetically, and I'm not exaggerating. I mean, my dad tells me stories about going into Piggy Park and there being white supremacist literature on where those sauces are right when you walk in the door. It was just like you could just pick up little pamphlets and stuff. And it was just the norm. There's a wonderful barbecue book called Smokestack Lightning by Lolis Eli, and he's Black. And his account of going to Piggy Park is very, very different than, say, like Ryan Fertile, who is white, his account of going to Piggy Park. And that's just part of our history. And we should know that it happened and accept that it happened. But you look at right now and you look, who's the face of barbecue for the state? Who's the face of barbecue? Honestly, I would argue he's one of the major faces internationally. It's Rodney Scott, who is Black, who's from a very poor part of the state, who has wonderful traditions that he's sharing with the world. And the fact that we went from that 30 years ago to where we are now is a huge deal, I think. And it says a lot about our culture and how we're willing to accept change and how we're willing to move forward and understand, I don't know, like we can see the negative, but we can move forward with the positive, and then also, but still understanding history and understanding where we come from is huge, right? That's why. I mean, I just don't feel like it would be.
You wouldn't be telling the story of barbecue if you didn't touch it.
You got it, and it's like any good history book, like you gotta talk about everything.
Well, we're going to come to some questions. Emmy's going to share some questions, but I have to ask because it's the difference between the CUE and the QUE in barbecue, right? So tell us about the difference.
So the QUE is, from what I can gather, is more. It's rooted in South Carolina, and it's like it's kind of like the rough and tumble version of the word, where the QUE is the more formal kind of like accepted version.
The CUE or the QUE?
The QUE is the more kind of formal, like academic, is what I would say. And it's more of like, if you looked it up in Webster's dictionary, maybe that's what the QUE is kind of more.
No, you just said QUE, didn't you?
No, the C.
Don't try to trip them up. Don't try to trip them up.
Because you chose to use CUE.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
And I was thinking, I thought I read in the book, maybe I just misunderstood that QUE was more of a South Carolina thing.
It is, yeah.
But you chose to use the North Carolina spelling.
Well, it's
as a South Carolinian, and so how you've betrayed us is really.
I would say it's not so specific to North Carolina. It's more global, so to speak.
Oh, okay.
So if you go to Texas, they spell it CUE, or Kansas City, it's CUE, and Memphis, it's CUE. South Carolina, in a small subset of barbecue, it's QUE. And as far as like part of me, I can be really selfish about it and think about like Google search, right? I want to use the words that people are searching for. So it's BBQ and CUE. That's
right.
The three letters.
Because when it all comes down to it, it's all about the money.
It's all about it. It's SEO, man.
Everything we
everything we talk about is just one big sham.
Right out the
for
window.
For Nathan to get into his Maserati and drive out with a.
Oh yeah.
So last question about barbecue, just quickly. You know, a lot of people. Do you put ketchup on anything other than French fries and burgers and hot dogs? Do you put it on beans?
No.
My wife puts ketchup on beans.
No.
Like lima beans.
My
eggs.
my husband's family puts ketchup on like everything.
So is there anything else you put barbecue sauce on other than barbecue? Is there something else? Have you ever tried barbecue?
Chicken fingers.
Chicken fingers.
Yeah,
okay.
chicken.
Well, that's kind of barbecue.
Yeah.
Page 3, chicken is not, he specifically says no.
So I like I use good barbecue sauce like on salmon, like grilling.
Oh, yeah.
Grilling fish or
okay,
stuff like that. I
okay.
was just curious if anybody used barbecue sauce for something different than barbecue, than traditional chicken, pork, or what is the other one? Beef.
I mean, I feel like if I have it nearby, whatever on my plate is being dipped into it at some point just to try it. You know,
French fries.
Exactly.
Oh, for
Fried
sure.
okra, whatever.
Ice cream.
Just throw it all in.
Yeah,
Yeah, ice cream. Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
Pour it on ice
Little,
cream.
little topping.
Okay.
All right, so we go through kind of it's not a rapid fire, but just a list of kind of the same questions. So just first thing that pops into your mind, you don't have to elaborate, or you can elaborate as much as you want. All right, what's the best compliment you've ever received?
Oh Lord. I will say this. Recently, my hair turned gray probably about 4 or 5 years ago. Ever since that happened, lots of compliments. I'm like, all right.
All right,
I did not
yeah.
expect that. Yeah.
You have nice gray hair.
Thanks. Yeah, exactly. I was like, all right.
I like how
I'll
he
take
jumped
it.
on the compliment. You
Well,
asked
we
the
were just
question and he
talking
goes,
about his hair.
you asked the question he goes, yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
I was asking a question. He just took it that way.
All right, what are you binge watching right now?
Oh wow. I guess we just finished The Pit, second season.
Ugh.
Oh, yeah.
Great show. We just
You like
finished,
it? You don't like it?
It came too
Oh my
gross.
God, it's so good.
Oh,
It's
intense.
so good.
It's intense. Yeah.
What are you binge watching? Anything? You just finished the Madison, right? You and Kelly
I
just
have
finished.
no idea. I sit there. This is how it goes. I goes on TV, and I get interested in whatever I'm told to get interested in, and and that's how we keep peace in the house.
And that's
Do I
a
really-
smart man.
Yeah,
How about
it's
you?
amazing.
I just finished The Pit. I started, what was one? I think you actually recommended, or someone recommended it. I can't even remember. I don't know. We watch a lot of Bluey in my house right now.
Oh,
Miss
gotcha.
Rachel.
I was like, Blue, what?
I'm binge watching Miss
Bluey.
Rachel and Bluey. Yeah, a lot of children's TV
Nice.
shows right now.
So I just have to. I started watching. Courtney and I started watching this the other night. It came as a recommendation. It's a complete train wreck. It's called Big Mistakes.
Oh, I've seen. Yeah, we're watching that right now.
You are
Yes.
watching?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's just like
what in the world?
we're just kind of in shock the whole show. I mean, it's so out of control. But anyway,
Yes.
that's our. All right,
I
go ahead.
love.
All right, what's your go-to flavoring when you're cooking?
Like spice or
Yeah.
whatever flavoring. Probably like just like Greek seasoning because
Okay.
it kind of goes on everything.
Yeah.
And I have a big thing next to
Yeah,
my.
I got a buddy in Raleigh that Tony Checheries or that
Everything, yeah.
puts it on everything, every single thing. It's really good.
Your favorite kitchen gadget or tool?
Honestly, chef's knife.
Okay.
8-inch chef's knife. Use it for 1,000 different things, and I know that's like probably the most boring answer.
No, what kind of chef's knife do you have?
It's a Wusthof, whatever.
Yeah,
Chef's knife,
nice.
I don't know. We've had it forever.
Will you get it sharpened at the
20
cook
years.
You know we do knife sharpening
Do you?
every other Wednesday.
I had a friend over. She came over. She and her husband came over this weekend. We were on our way to Atlanta, and she brought her knives because I have a little knife sharpener. And I literally said to her, you should probably, because it was bad.
Yeah.
I was like, you need to take this somewhere. So I'm going to recommend CookStation because I need to do that for mine too. Because it's one thing to like just hone it or whatever you call it, just to keep it.
Chef Craig, who you'll be doing the event with, he does all of our knife sharpening by hand. So it's really incredible.
Then I will be.
with a whetstone. The whole
Yeah.
That's
it's
fantastic.
cool. That's cool to watch. That's a whole art.
Yeah. Okay. I'll check. Thank you. That's great.
What name one of the most memorable dining experiences you've had. Could be at home, at a restaurant, anywhere. Just something. It could have been the people with you. What?
I will say, I mentioned at the beginning of all this, the thing that kicked all this off was a train trip.
Mm-hmm.
So the train trip was for my birthday. It was for my 40th birthday. And we went from Chicago to just outside of Napa Valley.
Okay.
And in Napa Valley, we ate at the French Laundry. So like that was probably the...
You have the book back there.
Is your picture in there?
In the background,
that was
dipping something in barbecue sauce.
Chef Keller, what barbecue
Holding
sauce
his book.
is your favorite?
Sneaking it in.
Sneaking it.
All right.
What profession other than your own are you interested in, or do you wish you had done?
Architecture.
Okay.
Like, no
I
question.
think I knew that, actually. I think we've had this discussion.
Probably.
before.
Did you just fall in love with your wife's work? Or?
Oh, no. I have been architect. It's one of, if you asked me when I was 7 years old what I wanted to be when I grew up, it was an architect. And that's what led me, honestly, throughout my entire career. Probably always started with that and kind of led me down. And that's probably one of the reasons my wife and I are married, is because we have that very similar interest.
Yes.
At our core. Yeah.
Right. What's one of your biggest pet peeves?
Hearing people eating.
That goes into what sound do you hate? Open mouth chewing.
Same thing. Yeah. No, when you go into, especially it's hard for me because you go into like a really authentic like Asian restaurant and it's like super polite to slurp your soup or whatever. Have you ever experienced that where like people will like slurp really loud to tell the chef like we really enjoy this? Like that is like nails on a chalkboard. I can't. It's really hard for me.
Wow.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
That's a weird one.
Did you know that about slurping?
Well, there's different cultural things in different countries that are very surprising.
I think it's
when you're dining.
My grandfather taught
like
me
beyond
to
just
slurp.
eye contact or not eye contact.
Pour your coffee into the saucer.
My grandfather taught me to
Pour
slurp
the-
by pouring coffee into the saucer,
Yeah,
and it cooled the coffee, and it drove my grandmother. Probably the way it probably she just went nuts. She's like, "What are you teaching them?"
Yeah, that would absolutely drive me insane.
Do you have any phobias?
Oh, yeah, I guess probably. I would say probably heights on an extreme level, right? Like if I'm, in a weird situation. I'm trying to think of an example.
Like the Sears Tower with the glass floor.
Yes, I was just in Chicago 3 weeks ago. My sister, I was with my family, and she went up with her husband, and I stayed down with my niece and nephew because I was like, no, not for me, not interested. I think I could probably do it, but it wouldn't be.
The older I get, the more it makes me like dizzy even to be there, which I feel like when you're younger, you're like,
it's like, yeah, exactly.
No.
Yeah.
All right. What song did you listen to on the drive over here?
Oh, it was the Smiths. It was on. It probably was How Soon Is Now because I have it on a playlist.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I know you like to dance.
I do like to dance.
Because I remember the MGM in Las Vegas where all of us were like insane. What was that, like a rave party? I don't even know what that was.
I don't know. It was some party. There were people.
So in high school, did you have a favorite dance song in high school?
I will say anything new wave 80s, anything in the Depeche Mode, the Smiths, The Cure, any of that stuff. Absolutely. I still listen to that now. I'm definitely dating myself, but I don't care.
Yeah, because one of the, we were thinking about, somebody asked us a question one time, is like, when you're at a wedding reception, what's the song that comes on that you cannot not dance? You have to dance.
What's so funny about that to me is like, that's
Flo
not
Rida or
God,
Nelly.
or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's that kind of thing. It's funny because that kind of thing doesn't necessarily align with what I listen to all the time. There are obviously overlaps, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, Blink 182, the song where you're like, I'd never listened to that band, but if it comes on, man,
you're just out. I mean, there's something in you that takes over, right?
Exactly. Yeah. very 90s, I guess, music.
What do you wish you had the courage to do? What's something that you haven't
That's
done
a
yet
great
that
question. You know what? I'd love to just quit everything and then, travel and document and write and do design work. If I could get paid for that, that'd be great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
so what's
Yeah, what's
It sounds like you.
Other than-
sounds like you just proved you can do it.
Well, you can tell this is what I like. I mean, this is that only came out in March, so we've yet to see
All right, so
how it's gonna happen.
you're not shopping for an airplane yet.
No, we'll see. But yeah, if I could do more of that, I'd do that all day. Yeah, for sure.
That's cool.
with so much changing quickly, as you talk about in the book and things, but just overall, what is something you wish would stay still, or they would bring back, like old school?
Oh, Lord. One of the things I really miss, and I don't know if y'all agree, but I know we were just talking about what am I binging and all that. One of the things I love about culture before, not even necessarily before the internet, but before cable and all that, was how culture could revolve around single events. So I think about television in the early 90s. I think about Seinfeld. Great example.
Yeah.
Friends get together.
Yeah, you watch.
Talked about it for 2 days.
Talked about it for 2 days. You watch it once a week. And when you watched it, and then it was gone. It was gone. You couldn't watch it again unless it was on reruns a year later some other time. So it was almost like a weekly event.
You planned around it.
Yeah. I miss that kind of thing because there's not a lot of things like that now. And when there are things like that, it's funny. The only thing recently I could think of would be Super Bowl or something like the Oscars, and those aren't even the same as they used to be.
Because you can rewatch it.
You see clips.
Yeah.
I think about that. I don't feel the same. I think I just the only word I could come up for it was specialness.
Yeah, that's it.
We've lost. Remember when you were a kid? Sunday nights was Disney.
Yes.
Or the Ed Sullivan. I'm going
or
way back.
little Ralphie on the Christmas Story sitting by the.
Don't look at me like I'm an old man.
Brought to you by the guy who.
I remember when radio was big.
Amos and Andy. What were you? What do you mean? You were
Little Orphan Annie.
I was a recent event that really happened. You just made me think of this. Is the Artemis 2 when they were all in space and going around the moon? That was a really good example of I remember I was in my studio and I have a TV in there for whatever reason. I just had a TV and I put it on the wall. Never use it ever except for that. I heard someone text me and said Netflix is streaming the Artemis 2 going around. They were just about to do their whole circuit around the moon, and I turned it on and I was glued for 3 days. I kept turning it back on the live feed, which is like C-SPAN, right? It's and they're just sitting there, but I watched it and it was fascinating
Haven't you ever watched the House? House of Representatives on Steve Hand? It's a real gripper, man.
A representative from Rock Hill would like to ask the guy in Fountain Inn if he can drive him home.
And they show some poor guy up there or a lady up there, and what they don't show you is there's nobody else in there.
It's just this person.
Want to see if you have change for a 5. Yes, sir.
But but that kind of thing. I think that was a really gripping moment. It's super weirdly emotional, right?
Yeah.
To kind of experience that. And it's cool that you're experiencing it with all of these other people at the same time. And then you see all the reactions later. Really cool. Anyway.
Who's the most famous person you've ever met?
Well, I don't know, met. So there are a lot of people in my industry that are famous that I've met a lot. That's a strong word, but a couple of people in my industry that no one really knows unless you're into design. So that's a big deal for me. But as far as general celebrity, whatever, I mean, I was about this far away from Harrison Ford in the MoMA in New York.
Oh, wow.
Just saying hello. I did that, but that doesn't, I mean, if you count that as met, I don't know.
That counts.
But
on the same it doesn't have to be a famous person, but whom would you like to have dinner with, and what would you want to talk about? It could be anyone in the world, dead or alive.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to go with something really recent because I could, that's a big one. I just read his memoir called House of Smoke. It's by John T. Edge. He's the guy who started the Southern Foodways Alliance out of Mississippi, Oxford, Mississippi. He grew up in Athens, Georgia. He had REM playing at house parties during he was a fraternity person. And then he started this whole Southern Foodways Alliance, which is a celebration of kind of Southern food and culture and elevating that in the zeitgeist, so to speak. And I would love to I'd love to have lunch with him, pick his brain.
Yeah.
I mean, just have him choose the menu.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. You tell us
you
where
pick
to
the
go.
place to eat and order for me.
Yes,
I'll be there.
exactly. He's a really interesting guy. He's a great book, House of Smoke. Yeah, just plug in his book. I don't know.
All right. What is the secret sauce to life? Can be happiness, success, good things. What's your choice? A secret sauce.
Just something. It could be anything. It could be a design even.
I will say I just, I mentioned before, I just did this big talk to students last week. So I have you do these things and you're always trying to sum it up into bullet points so they can take pictures of and post on their Instagram. And one of the ones that I talked about that I think is really big is don't let other people define your career for you. And I say that really intentionally, because another way to say that is kind of follow your bliss, right? Do the things that bring you joy and do the things that make you happy. And if other people have a hard time wrapping their head around what you do, that's not your problem.
Okay, very cool.
One of the things we can geek out here a little on design because someone shared this with me. I was talking to another designer that teaches out in California at Cal Arts.
Oh, nice.
And we were talking about graphic design, and I was like, what's the secret ingredient to great graphic design?
Mm-hmm.
And he said contrast.
Mm.
And I was, and he said, just think about that for a minute. And he said, just think about great anything, just anything. Contrast is the secret ingredient, to have something silky with something edgy, or we went into this, and the more I thought about it, the more obvious it became. It was just just go to the moment, go to the art museum, look at the power of contrast in all the great art, in the modern art more.
Yeah,
but just in design, you look at it's pretty interesting. I'd never really thought about it. I'd never really thought about it in that way before. Now, my daughter is just getting started as a career as a designer down in, she didn't even study graphic design in school. She was a writer.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I got to tell you about contrast.
Hierarchy, contrast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I was reminded of a poster that I saw in college, that it was a picture of a boar, and the headline said "sex symbol."
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember, the professor talking about juxtaposition and contrast, but it didn't stick with me then like it stuck with me as my friend Armando told me about contrast. But anyway,
No, that's great. I always, when you said that, the first thing that came to mind was that old ad for Volkswagen where it had the Beetle or Think Small, or just it said lemon.
Yeah.
Right? That to me is a beautiful way to say that, right? Because you're just what? I think, for sure, any great art movement, specifically think about art movements, and I always like to think about context around that kind of stuff. And you think about Picasso's a great example. His work was so different at the time, and he was inventing new ways of seeing. And you look at it now and it's that face is all rearranged or whatever. But if you look at it at the time and you look at kind of where he came from and he could draw like Raphael. So why didn't he do that all the time? It's because he was inventing new ways of essentially seeing and looking at the world. And I think contrast is a great way to kind of summarize that, I think, for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating.
Mm-hmm. That's
cool, man.
Nathan, thank you for joining us. We do carry the South Carolina Barbecue Project at the Cook Station. So if you're interested in getting a book, come see us
$47.95.
And as always, if you have any questions or guests you'd like to see, please email us at askachef.com. And we hope to see you back for the next episode.
Ask a Chef at the Cook Station.
At thecookstation.com, sorry.
It's all right.
Oh, and,
Greg will
and,
have it somewhere down here.
and it was funny too. Just so you know, if you go to the store and look for the book, it is in the barbecue section.
Excellent.
So I went.
excellent.
It's so funny. So I was looking at the cookbooks. I'm like,
You guys are really
I'm
on
like,
the game.
what is this
You're
thing?
really on top of it. I thought it was by the register.
Yeah. It's on the back of the toilet seat. You go to the bedroom. Yeah, back there. It's probably. It was so funny.